Hello. A lot of people are looking for an accounting system for a small business on Excel. And many ask, how can the journal entries be written and posted to the general ledger? How can the trial balance and financial statements be prepared? Should I use formulas, macros, or pivot tables? In this video, we'll answer all of these questions. We will prepare a small accounting system without using macros. This system is for a small service company, as well as you can use it for commercial companies, but without inventory control. We will define the chart of accounts and write journal entries with an example, and create a sheet for general ledger. Then we'll get the account balances to use them later in the trial balance and financial statements. Are you ready? Let's begin. First, we'll open a new Excel file and we'll rename the sheet Chart of Accounts. Then we'll write the following data in it, knowing that there are accounts for income statement and the balance sheet. In the main type, we'll put assets, liabilities, and equity for the balance sheet and revenues and expenses for the income statement. In the account type, the assets will be subdivided into current assets, long-term investments, property, plant and equipment, etc. Liabilities also will be subdivided. In the statement, we'll put income statement, retained earnings, or balance sheet. Finally, we have balance. We'll use Excel equations to get the balance for each account. Now we'll enter some accounts. For example, cash is an asset, current asset, in the balance sheet. And then we'll format the cells. Fill the cell with color. Change the row height. Bold. Change font size. Center and middle align. Then we'll make conditional formatting to cells to have borders if we insert data. Let's see what conditional formatting can do. If I write anything in this file without conditional formatting, for example, cash, nothing happens. With conditional formatting, if I write cash, there will be borders in the row from A2 to E2. Let's see how I can make conditional formatting for this. To make conditional formatting, we have to select from column A to column E and then conditional formatting. New role. Use a formula to determine which cells to format. The formula here equals A1. We want A1, A2, and A3, etc. So we make absolute reference for A and relative reference for 1. To do that, we have to press Fn with F4. Or F4. Here we have absolute reference for A and 1. Again, Fn with F4, relative reference for A and absolute reference for 1. We don't want it. Again, Fn with F4, we have absolute reference for A and relative reference for 1. That's it. A1 isn't equal 0. If that's true, in the format there will borders. Let's select this border and select these and press OK. OK, here we're done. Finally, you will freeze the first row. From the View tab, choose Freeze Pens and then choose Freeze Top Row to keep titles visible on the screen even if there's a lot of data. Now we'll make the journal entries sheet. In typical accounting, we have 2 accounts at least in the journal entry. One of them is debit and the other is a credit. Here we'll use one account only and the other will be the cash account by default. If the account is debit, we will put negative number. If the account is a credit, we will put positive number. If we have non-cash transaction, we have to make 2 journal entries. For example, if I have a credit sales by $1,000, the entry will be debit accounts receivable, credit sales. In our file, we'll make 2 entries, debit accounts receivable, credit cash, and then debit cash, credit sales. In summary, there will be no impact on cash. Let's see how we are going to format the journal entries sheet. Let's create a new sheet and rename it Journal Entries. First, let's input data. Date, amount, account, and explanation. We will also create two automatic fields to separate the debit and the credit. Then we'll repeat the same steps we've done before to format the cells and conditional formatting in the chart of accounts sheet. Or we can simply use Format Painter to apply the same look of the chart of accounts sheet. To do that, we'll select column A in the chart of accounts sheet, then press on Format Painter in Home tab and go to Journal Entries sheet and select from column A to column F to automatically apply the formatting. Let's do some formatting to the sheet. For example, we can change the column's width and change the number format to date for column A from here and choose date and then choose any type from here. For column B, we will use accounting format by pressing on the comma after selecting the column, and we can remove numbers after decimal point from here. For the account field, we have to do data validation to ensure that we use only the accounts listed in the chart of accounts sheet. To do that, we'll select column C and go to Data tab. Select Data Validation, List, then go to Chart of Accounts sheet and select column A. OK. Now if we put, for example, cash, it's OK. But if we put common stock, it will give an error. So we have to define this account in the chart of accounts sheet before we can insert here. In fact, we don't need the cash account to appear within the accounts here, but we need all accounts except cash. So we need the range from A3 to A12 in chart of accounts sheet. We'll repeat the same steps in data validation, but we will select the range A3, A12. But here, the number 12 is variable because we will need other accounts. So I'll copy these characters and then entirely press OK. Then go to any cell and write apostrophe to show the formula and then paste. We need these exact characters from after equals to $sign. So we'll select and copy them, then press enter. Write equals, then paste them between two quotation marks to take them as a text. Now we need the variable 12. To do that, we'll use conta function. The conta function counts the number of cells that are not empty in a range. Equals conta, the column A in the chart of accounts sheet. We have to use absolute reference for column A. The value here is 12. If I write any word in A13, the value will become 13. Now I have to combine the text above with conta function. Double click, select and copy without equals, then press enter. Double click, write and symbol at the end of the formula, then paste. To make this text as a reference, we want to use the indirect function. Indirect returns the reference specified by a text string. References are immediately evaluated to display their contents. We just put indirect, open parentheses, and then enter. In a single cell, this formula will give an error, but it refers to the range A3 to A12 in chart of accounts sheet, and we can use it in a name. A name is a meaningful shorthand that makes it easier to understand the purpose of a cell reference, constant, formula, or table, each of which may be difficult to understand at first glance. To use it, we'll go to Formula tab. Select Define Name. The name mustn't include spaces. We can write any name refers to our data. For example, ACC_name. Here we'll select this equation and paste our formula. If I select any range and write equals, ACC_name and press enter, it will give me the values in my source range. If I insert any new account in column A, the list will be updated. Now we can use our new name in the data validation. We'll go to Journal Entries sheet. From Data tab, Data Validation, clear our old reference, press Fn with F3 or F3, select our name, OK. Here we're done. If I insert any new account, the list will be updated. Now I will delete these items because I don't need them, and save the file. Let's move to an example of journal entries. We will use an example from the Intermediate Accounting book in 3rd chapter. We have previously explained this example in one of the channel's videos, and we'll put the link for you in the description. For speed, we have defined the necessary accounts in the chart of accounts sheet, and we'll only enter journal entries. Let's begin. October 1st, stockholders invest $100,000 cash in an advertising venture to be known as Pioneer Advertising Agency Inc. The entry is debit cash, credit common stock. First we'll write the date, then in the amount we'll put positive $1,000 because the account is a credit. In the account common stock, in the explanation, issued shares of stock for cash. October 1st, Pioneer Advertising purchases office equipment costing $50,000 by signing a 3-month 12% $50,000 note payable. The entry is debit equipment, credit notes payable. Here we'll put the both accounts. After inserting date, in the amount, negative $50,000 because the account is debit. In the account equipment, in the explanation, issued 3-month 12% note for office equipment. Repeat date by press Ctrl and apostrophe. In the amount, positive $50,000 because the account is a credit. In the account, notes payable. Then press Ctrl and apostrophe to repeat the explanation. After finishing all transactions, we'll separate debit and credit amounts with max and min. Let's see how. In the debit, we'll use min B2, 0. The result will be 0. In the credit, equals max B2, 0. The result 100,000. Double click on cell handle to copy formulas down. The numbers in the debit are negative. To avoid that, we'll put minus after equals in the equation. Feel serious? Here we're done. Now let's fill the balance field in the chart of accounts sheet. We need to edit the title to show which balance is debit and which is credit. To force wrap text, press Alt and Enter. Then write debit between 2 parentheses / credit. That means the negative number is debit and the positive one is a credit. Then let's let Excel calculate the balance for each account. For the cash, it's the opposite number of some transaction we've input in the journal entries sheet. So we write equals minus sum, column B in the journal entries sheet. For other accounts, we need SUMIF function. You use SUMIF function to sum the values in a range that meet criteria that you specify. Equals SUMIF. The range that meets the criteria is column C in the journal entries sheet, comma. The criteria we need is the cell A3 in the chart of accounts sheet, comma. The range we need to sum is column B in the journal entries sheet. To fill a formula down, drag the fill handle across the cells Now we can use Format Painter to make accounting formatting for the numbers. Then we can choose Wrap Text to turn it back. Now, let's create a new sheet and rename it Assumptions for Financial Statements Presentation. We'll input these data. Company name, in our example, Pioneer Advertising Agency Inc. Fiscal year begin date, typically at January 1st. Fiscal year end date, typically at December 31st. Period, it will be month, quarter, or year. Report date, typically December 31, 2022. Finally, we can move the sheet to be the first. Before we go to the general ledger, let's create a trial balance sheet. Here we'll input titles. In A1, we need the company name from the assumptions sheet. Simply equals B1 in the assumptions sheet. In A2 cell, we write trial balance. In A3, we need the report date. Equals B5 in the assumptions sheet. Then we have to change the number format to date if necessary. To center text across columns without merging cells, use the Center Across Selection command, available from the dialog launcher in the alignment group of the Home tab. Let's input these data: account, debit, credit, then add borders to cells. In A5 cell, it must contain the first account in the chart of accounts sheet. Simply I can write equals cell A2 in the chart of accounts sheet. If I feel serious, Excel will display zeros after finishing all accounts. To avoid this, I have to use if function. If cell A2 in the chart of accounts sheet equals 0, if that's true, give me two quotations to look like empty cell. If that's false, give me the value of the cell A2 in the chart of accounts sheet. If I feel serious, Excel will display empty cells after finishing all accounts. To fill the debit field, we want the opposite number of all negative balances in the chart of accounts sheet. We can use min function as we did before, but here I'll use if function. Equals if E2 cell in the chart of accounts sheet less than 0, give me the opposite number of its value, else give me 0. We will do the opposite in the credit. Equals if E2 cell in the chart of accounts sheet greater than 0, give me its value, else give me 0. Again, if I feel serious, Excel will display zeros after finishing all accounts. To avoid this, we have to use if function. We can use Alt and Enter after equals to split the formula to make reading and understanding it easier. Drag and drop to expand the formula bar, and then write if A5 cell equals two quotations, then give me two quotations, comma. Press enter. Feel serious? Again, the same steps in the credit field. Here we're done. Now we can make accounting formatting like we did before. Then we want the totals for debit and credit. To avoid circular references and complicated formulas, we will use an Excel camera. The camera allows user to cut and paste dynamic pictures of data ranges that can then be arranged in any layout for display or printing. Let's see how. Copy the range from column A to column C. Go to any cell in the row 1, for example G1. Right-click on the mouse, paste special, column width. We can remove grid lines from View tab. In G4, for example, we write totals. In H4, AutoSum from Home tab. Select column B. Fill series to I4. Double underline for both cells. Right space in H3 and I3. Format Painter. Then replace the double underline with underline in H3 and I3. Now let's add the camera to Quick Access Bar. Just click on the drop-down arrow at the far right end of the Quick Access Bar and select More Commands. In the Excel Options dialog box, select Commands not in the ribbon. Scroll down in the list of commands and select the camera tool. Click Add and then OK. Now we select the range from G3 to I5. Click on the camera. Click in A18 cell. Any edit in the cell will appear in the picture. To remove the picture borders, Picture Format, Picture Border. We'll choose the white color or no borders. One of the most important advantages that we can move the image however we want. Now we can set a print area to avoid printing any important data. Select range from column A to column C. Page Layout tab. Print area. Set print area. Press Ctrl and P. Now the trial balance is ready to print. Let's make general ledger or statement of account. We are going to make a new sheet and rename it statement of account. And then we are going to put these data. Date, explanation, debit, credit, balance, debit or credit, account name, account summary, opening balance, debit, credit, ending balance, beginning date, ending date. Then we are going to see how to fill it up with data. In cell A1, we are going to put the company name, in which we take from the sheet assumptions from cell B1, like we did before. In account name, we must use data validation, as we did before. Now we have a list of accounts. We can choose from it any account we want. As for beginning date and ending date, we choose any two dates we want, such as October 1st, 2022 and October 31st, 2022. Now, in order to filter any account, we want to use index and match functions. But we need to do a little trick by using the row and countifs functions. Now let's move to cell F7 and write equals row F1. The result is number 1 because the cell F1 is in the first row. If we fill series down, we'll get 2, 3, 4, etc. Now let's move to sheet journal entries and put data. We can use it in other equations. For example, in cell G1, we can put the value of cell H5 in statement of accounts sheet in order to take the account name which we need to look for it. In cell H1, we need the value of cell H13 in the statement of accounts sheet to take the report beginning date. In cell I1, we need the value of cell H14 in the statement of accounts sheet to take the report ending date. The report must take dates greater than or equal the beginning date and less than or equals ending date. So we'll put greater than or equal in H2 and less than or equal in I2. Now in cell G3, we write the equation equals countifs. The first range is from C2 with absolute reference to C2 with relative reference to make the range expand when we fill series down. The first criteria is cell G1 with absolute reference. The second range is from cell A2 with absolute reference to A2 with relative reference. The second condition is greater than or equals opening date in H1, and for that we're going to add two cells, H2 and H1 with absolute reference with AND symbol between them, because Excel considers them as a text. The third range is from cell A2 with absolute reference to A2 with relative reference. The third criteria is less than or equals ending date. It's the value of I1. And for that we are going to add the two cells, I2 and I1 with absolute reference with AND symbol between them. If we fill series down, Excel will give us number 1 in front of the first value that match, and then repeat the number 1 until the second value match. If we write a date such as November 1, 2022 and purchase office equipment costing $60,000 cash, the first condition didn't change because the date isn't in the range required. If we change the ending date to November 1, 2022, we will find the number will become 2. Now let's move to sheet statement of accounts. Remove these items, we don't want them. We let cell A7 empty now for opening balance later. In cell A8, we are going to insert an equation, temporarily its match function. To look for cell A6 with relative reference to column and absolute reference to the row, comma, look for the value in the range from A1 to F1 in the journal entries sheet with absolute reference, comma, we put the value 0 for exact match. The value here is 1. That means that the date comes first in the required range. If we fill a series to the right, it will give us 4, which means that explanation comes in the fourth in the range, and like that. Now let's open an Office clipboard to make it easier to copy and paste. Let's copy the equation without the equal sign. We find that it will appear in the Office clipboard. This equation shows column number. Now let's delete the equation and insert a new one that expresses the row number. Equals match row A1, which value is 1, comma, we look for the value in column G in the journal entries sheet with absolute reference, comma, we put 0 for exact match. It will give us 3, which is the number of the row required value. Now we'll copy the equation without the equal sign. It will appear in the clipboard, then we delete it. Now we want index function equals index. The matrix that we are looking for is from column A to column F in the journal entries sheet with absolute reference. The row number is the last equation, comma, column number is the earlier equation. Just I click on them in the clipboard. We fill a series to the right, change the format of the numbers to date and accounting. Then a series down, we'll find that Excel will give us error for every empty value. To avoid that, we can add if error in the beginning of the formula after an equal sign. And at the end of the equation, we put comma, then put double quotation. For Excel to replace any error with an empty space. Fill series to the right, fill without formatting, fill series down. Here we're done. In cell A7, we have to put beginning date. Simply equals H13. we change the format of the cell if necessary. In cell B7, we have to put opening balance, simply equals G8. We want to get the opening balance with SUMIFS function, equals SUMIFS. The range we need to sum is column B in the journal entries sheet with absolute reference, comma. The first criteria range is column C in the journal entries sheet with absolute reference, comma. The first criteria is G1 in the journal entries sheet with absolute reference, which express the account name. The second criteria range is column A in the journal entries sheet with absolute reference. The second criteria is that the date have to be less than beginning date, and for that we write the symbol less between two quotation marks, then and symbol. Then we select cell H1 in the journal entries sheet with absolute reference. Fill series to the right to take the same value for credit. Like we did before, we'll separate debit and credit with max and min functions. We can open the clipboard, copy the SUMIFS formula without equals in the debit equals min and paste the formula, comma, 0. We have to put minus before min to let the number be positive. In the credit equals max, paste the formula, comma, 0. The first balance in cell E7 equals minus C7 plus D7. The second balance in cell E8 equals E7 minus C8 plus D8. If I fill series, the Excel will give me errors. So we have to put if error function after equals, put our formula between two parentheses, comma, two quotation marks. Let's complete the report data. In A2, write statement of account. In A3, we want dynamic expression of report start and end date. Equals from space between two quotations. Then we put and symbol, then text, the value of the cell H13, comma, the format of the number between double quotation marks. Here we want date. To display the month like December, we have to put 4M. Then D to give us the day number. Then comma and space. And then 4Ys in order to show the whole year. Then and symbol, then space, to space, between two quotation marks, and then again text for the value in the cell H4 with the same format. In cell A5, we combine the content of cell H5 and G5 equals G5 and symbol, space between two quotation marks, and symbol H5. Then let's fill this summary. In opening balance equals cell E7. In debit we take the sum of column C and subtract cell C7 from it. To make the value negative, after equals, I'll put minus and put the formula between two parentheses. In credit, we take the sum of column D and subtract cell D7 from it. In the ending balance, we take the sum of the range from H8 to H10. We use the camera to take a picture of this summary and put it at the top of the report. We can use center across selection as we did before and set print area also to avoid printing unnecessary data. Now we'll create financial statements sheets. The easiest one is the retained earnings. I'll start with it. Let's put these data. Retained earnings statement, retained earnings January 1, add net income, less cash dividends, retained earnings December 31. In A1, I want a company name, the value of cell B1 in the assumptions sheet. In A3, I want a dynamic expression from assumptions sheet. I will write it in the assumptions sheet and then cut and paste it here. This way is easier. In any cell, write equals, quotation, for the, space, quotation, then and symbol, before and symbol, quotation, space, ended, space, quotation, and symbol, text B5 with date format, between two quotation marks, for M, D, comma, for Y. To cut the formula, Ctrl and X, turn to retained earnings sheet. In A3, Ctrl and V. Then do some formatting. To look for beginning balance for retained earnings, we have to look for retained earnings account in the chart of accounts sheet. Like I did before, I will cut and paste the formula. We need VLOOKUP function in any cell in the chart of accounts sheet equals VLOOKUP. The lookup value is retained earnings between two quotation marks, comma. The table array is the range from A to E columns. The column index is 5. Then we must put false for exact match. Then cut. Go to cell C4 in retained earnings sheet. Paste. The net income value is revenues minus expenses. But here the revenues are with positive numbers and the expenses are negative number. All of them are in the income statement, so we can use SUMIF function. Equals SUMIF. The range is the column D. The criteria is income statement between two quotation marks. The sum range is the column E. Cut and paste in the cell C5 in the retained earnings sheet. Also dividends, we have to look for it in the chart of accounts sheet. With VLOOKUP equals VLOOKUP, lookup value is dividends between two quotation marks. The table array is from column A to column E. Column index number is 5. False for exact match. Cut and paste. Then format painter. Retained earnings at December 31 is sum range C4, C7. Some formatting to the cells. Here we're done. Now let's create the income statement sheet. But here I will make a single step income statement. I'll make a multiple step income statement in another video. I explained the income statement in a video before. To make an income statement sheet, I will insert pivot table from the chart of accounts sheet. Go to Insert tab, Pivot Table. Here we have a new sheet. Let's rename it Income Statement. Now let's select main type. Because we have single step income statement, we don't need the account type. Then accounts, we have to put the statement in the filter field and the balance in the value field. Then we have to make filter and select income statement. Let's put the revenues before the expenses just by drag and drop. Now change the format of sales to accounting. Delete sum of balance and write space from formula bar. And row labels also. We want to replace grand total with net income from the formula bar. Double underline for the net income. Now go to Design tab, Subtotals. Select Show all subtotals at bottom of groups. Replace revenues total with total revenues. Underline for total revenues and total expenses. After doing some formatting, select row 1, insert 3 new rows for the titles. Go to Retained Earnings sheet, copy the titles, then paste here. We'll replace the statement of retained earnings with the income statement and hide row 4. We can add $sign to the net income. Now I will create a help sheet for balance sheet presentation. I will copy the chart of accounts sheet and edit its data. First, right-click on the Sheet tab, Move or Copy, create a copy. OK. Move the sheet before the chart of accounts sheet. Rename it to Help. Let's fill data depends on the chart of accounts sheet. We just need the balance sheet accounts in A2 equals if cell D2 in the chart of accounts sheet with absolute reference for the column and relative reference for the row equals balance sheet between two quotation marks. If that's true, give me the value of A2 in the chart of accounts sheet. If that's false, give me two quotation marks. Fill series down. Then fill series to the right without formatting. Here we have problem with the retained earnings account. We want its balance from the retained earnings sheet. Alt and Enter after equals to split the formula. If A2 in the chart of accounts sheet equals retained earnings between two quotation marks, if that's true, give me the value of the cell C8 in the retained earnings sheet with absolute reference, comma, Enter. The value is updated. All assets have negative balances and we want them positives. Drag and drop the formula bar, Alt and Enter. If cell B2 equals assets between two quotation marks, then let's cut our old formula. If that's true, we put minus and paste the formula to have the opposite number. If that's false, comma, paste the formula to have the original number. Here we're done. Now let's create the balance sheet. From Help Sheet, insert Pivot Table. Select Main Type, then Account Type, then Account Name. Move the balance to the value field. Here we have to change the formula. Press on Count of Balance, Value Field Setting, select Sum. Replace row label with a space and Sum of Balance also. Move liabilities to be above the equity. After do some formatting, go to Design tab, Subtotals. Select Show all subtotals at bottom of a group. Replace, for example, Current Assets Total with Total Current Assets. All totals will be updated. From Design tab, Grand Totals. Select Off for rows and columns. Now we want to add a new calculated field which refer to total liabilities and equity. Press on the cell that contain assets or liabilities or equity. Go to Pivot Table Analyze, Fields, Items and Sets, Calculated Item. We'll change the name. Total Liabilities and Equity. Press on Liabilities, write plus, press on Equity. Add, OK. Click the minus sign to collapse the detail. Now let's make some formatting and insert 3 rows for titles. Copy the titles from the income statement sheet. Replace income statement with balance sheet. Here we need the date only from the expression, so we delete all text before the text function. And we will hide row 4. Now we want some links to make the navigation between sheets easier. We go to Assumptions sheet. From Insert tab, select Illustrations, Shapes, any shape you want. We write Chart of Accounts in it. Make some formatting. Right-click on the shape, link, place in this document. Select Chart of Accounts. If I click on the shape, it will take me to the Chart of Accounts sheet. Repeat the same steps for all sheets. Then create a new shape in the Chart of Accounts sheet and add a link to the Assumptions sheet. We can copy it to all sheets. After finishing, we can hide the grid lines in the Assumptions sheet and freeze pens to fix the shapes in this sheet. That's all for today. If you like this video, I will make another one for multiple step income statement. Waiting for your comments. See you.